Okay, this video or series of videos is going to take you through creating sprites that can automatically track other sprites and shoot bullets and things like that. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little demonstration. I'm going to create graphics for this. I'm just going to use rectangles. So we're going to start off by creating two sprites. One that is a like gun turret type sprite, and that's going to have the ability to shoot. Okay, so we'll get that bit going first, and then we'll give it some other sprites to try and lock onto. Okay, now I'll show you a couple of different ways of doing that. So if we create, well, let's call it turret. I'm going to call it tracker. I'm going to give it some positions. So these are going to be the X and Y positions. I'm also going to give it how often it shoots. Which I'll give it as a number, not a made up variable now. So every quarter of a second I'm going to make this shoot, and I'm going to give it the speed of its bullet, so 250 pixels per second. Now obviously I haven't set that information yet, and I haven't got a sprite, so I'm now going to try and create that. So generate method stub, and it creates all the parameters for me. Now it hasn't done them perfectly, so let's have a look at how it could make a bit. I want some of these to be floats, so if I put an F next to all these, it should, if I get it to recreate that subroutine, realise that they're all floats. There you go. Doesn't have sensible names for them, so I'm going to call it X position, Y position. This is going to be shoot delay, and this one is going to be shot speed. Okay, so I just named my parameters there. Right, so I'm just going to create a simple sprite. I'm using the latest version of the engine, so I can create a sprite like this. Nice and easy. Define a frame, and I'm going to use the engine manager single white pixel for this, and then I'll scale it to the size I want. So that's 1 pixel in white. So all I've got to do is now say s.sx equals, right, I want this to be a thin rectangle pointing up, so I'm going to make it 10 pixels wide, and I'll make it 22 pixels high. Okay, and the scale is that because this is a single pixel. Right, I need to set the X and Y positions, so X pars, just use my parameters that I set up. Okay, right, I've got shot speed. Okay, so what I'm gonna use that for is I'm just going to use the timer system to run another subroutine. So I need to initialize the timer. Okay, and I'm going to say timer dot fire event. So this fires a subroutine every so often. You can do this there's loads of different ways of doing this. This is just the quickest way of doing it. It's probably not the most flexible. So I'm going to fire this event on shoot delay, whatever value I said for that, and I'm going to run a subroutine that doesn't exist yet called shoot. Okay, now the shot speed I'm going to store, because I'll need that later on when I shoot my bullet, and I'm going to stick that in a property called amount. So I'm going to say shot speed, just making it flexible for the future. Okay, let's create this shoot subroutine. So this is just going to be called shoot. So it's going to take my turret as a parameter, and then I'm going to shoot. Okay, so and I'm going to go bullet, and which doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to create a bullet sprite, and I'm going to use the turret sprite because I want various values, and later on I'll add to this and there'll be more values. Okay, so I'm now going to create this subroutine. So quite simple so far, and I'm going to create another sprite based off the engine manager's little single pixel again. So s.frame dot define engine manager dot single white pixel. I'm going to expand that up, otherwise we won't see the bullet. So I'm going to say set the scale to both to be 3. So it looks 3 pixels by 3 pixels wide. Okay. Now I'm going to set the bullet to shoot from the top of the rectangle of the turret. So I'm going to set the X position to be the center of it. So that's going to be turret, and I passed the whole turret sprite so I can use various values. So that's turret.center.x, and my Y position for my bullet is going to be turret.top. Okay. What I'm also going to do, I don't want the sprite going on forever, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill it. So I'm going to turn on the timer system for the bullet sprite, and I'm going to say timer.kill after 4 seconds. Okay. Right, the other thing I need to do is set its velocity. Okay, and that was in the the amount property of the turret sprite. Now there's loads of ways of setting the velocity. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the direction that the bullet sprite is facing. Now I want the direction the bullet sprite is facing to be the same as the turret. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say set my rotation angle for my bullet equal to my turret's rotation angle. Now I'm not moving the turret at the minute, but I will do in a little while. So I'm going to set, then I can set a velocity in the direction I'm facing, so using a sprite helper. Okay, so velocity in current direction, and this is the bullet sprite, and then the speed is going to be turret dot amount, because that's where we stored the speed that this turret's bullet's got. The reason we've done it this way is because once we've got one turret working, we'll be able to do the same action with 20 turrets if we want, without doing any extra work. Okay, so we've set up a turret sprite. We had a few parameters: the X, Y position, how often to shoot, and how fast the bullet should go. So we set those up, and we stored how fast the bullets are going in this property called amount. Okay, we created a little event on the timer system to run this subroutine, which creates a bullet at the position the turret is at. Okay, which was this code. Right, let's run this instance. Let's hope it works. Chuggy chuggy chuggy. Fan's going like mental on me laptop. Oh, I think we're getting there. It's saying ready, so it should flick up screen in a minute. There we go. And action. There you go. So that's where I positioned it on the screen. About 100, 200 I think bullets. I think the virus scanner's kicked in, which is probably why it's chugging like mad. Okay, not very useful now at the minute. Let's start this turret rotating, and then we'll work out how to position the bullets properly. So I'm just going to go up to my turret definition. I'm just going to say rotation velocity equals 10 degrees per second. Okay, and run my code again. You'll see that we've got a bit of a problem, which we'll fix. It's right. I think the schedule 5, which is annoying. So I do apologise if it looks jerky. So I'm rotating, but the bullets are coming out at the same position. Okay, so now they're at the side, like I've got a side cannon. Now what's happening is, we said that it should be at the top, which was fine when it was pointing up. So we said here, look, yeah, position into account that it's turned. Okay, and I can bullet like okay, so I'm going to use the rotation up. I would see as a piece of paper on a page. Okay, now I'm going to supply the position of the bullet because that's the thing I want to rotate. I want to rotate it around the center of the turret. So I'm going to say turret.center, and I want to rotate it by the angle that the turret is rotated, so that I move around. So I'm working out where the top of the sprite is once it's been rotated. So turret dot rotation angle. Now that line's a bit long, so what we can do, it doesn't help that I made this really long, but I want to keep it with the sensible name. What I can do is just break that so it's over 2 lines. So that should now, when we run it, make the bullet here in the. So let's just see. So I slowly rotate. See that the bullet comes out of the rectangle. There you go. So there we go. We've got a sprite autonomously shooting bullets in the direction it's facing. Now the next thing is give it something to track. So let's have a look at doing that. Okay, so we don't have to just manually rotate it. So let's create another sprite. Let's go back up to our start title subroutine. Wherever you put this is up to you, but this, remember, these are just demonstrations. So I'm going to have an enemy sprite because obviously it's the enemy, and I'm going to again give it some data so it can position itself. 400 F, and it'll give it a random velocity. Okay, so I'm going to, in fact I'm not going to bother, I'm going to give it random positions for everything. Okay, so I'm just going to create a plain old enemy sprite and just put random values in when I create that sprite. So if I right click on that, say generate method stub. So let's create another simple sprite equals engine manager dot add sprite, and again I'm going to use the single white pixel and then scale it up to make a block of some description. So single white pixel, and I'm going to scale this so it's a bit bigger, so 20 pixels wide, but again I'm going to make it slightly oblong, 25 pixels high. Okay, so it's slightly oblong. Right, so I'm going to set its position, and I'm going to get more. I'm going to get it to spawn at a fixed location. So 500 s.y equals 500. So somewhere bottom right of the screen somewhere. Okay, and I'm going to give it a random velocity. So I'm going to say s.velocity equals new vector 3, and I'm just going to say r.next minus 100 comma 100. Not going to make it go very fast, so it's going to pick a number between minus 100 and 100 for the x velocity, and the same for the y velocity. I'm not bothered about the z. Okay, this is going to look pretty naff because it'll go off screen, so I'm going to turn on the limit system and I'm going to make it wrap when it goes off screen, like asteroids do. So viewport action limit action dot wrap exact. Okay, I could have made it bounce, whatever. Right, let's just see if that works. So we should see a white rectangle and another white rectangle. Okay, again it's jerky because of the virus scanner. Right, it's moving slightly round, so what I'm going to do for this, just to make it look a bit better, I'm going to create an update handler. So I'm back in my enemy sprite definition, and I'm going to make it rotate the direction it's facing. So I'm going to call it face me or something, I don't know, I'll call it face me. Okay, So I'm going to create this little subroutine. So void face me. So sprite, and I'm just going to put sprite s for this. And I'm going to use the rotation helper, and I'm going to say base my movement. Okay, that's what I'm going to use for this one. Alright, so whatever direction I'm facing, I want to rotate so I'm look like I'm going in the right direction. So I'm going to say face movement, direction actually is free, which means I get the exact angle I'm moving at. Set false for that. No is for adding an extra amount of rotation, depending on how you've got your graphics. Because I'm pointing mine up, I don't have to add anything on. Okay, so let's just see what that looks like. Hopefully we'll have a rectangle that's rotated in the direction it's facing. There you go. So it's moving it's going left and slightly down, so it's rotated it automatic. Okay, right, let's get the target, the turret sprite, to look for this one now. So we're going to go back to our definition for our turret. Okay, and we're going to add an update handler to this. So I'm going to say on update, find target, we're going to call it. So we're going to create this just here. So void find target. I'm going to show you a simple system that can just track one sprite to start with. I'm going to call that parameter turret. Okay. Right. In order to look up sprites, we have to use sprite types. Now I haven't set any sprite types on any of this. So if we look at our enemy, I'm going to set the enemy sprite. Let me just get rid of that window, stupid thing. Set the type of it to sprite type enemy. Okay. Now I'm just going to look for, in my find target, the first sprite. So I'm going to say sprite enemy equals engine manager. Oh, she wouldn't do that. Engine manager dot get first sprite, have a type, and the type is sprite type dot enemy. Okay, right, we don't assume we've got a sprite, so we need to check if enemy is not equal to null. Then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate to try and face that sprite. Alright, and we're going to use the rotation helper, the rat helper, rotation helper, to face where that sprite is. So we can say face the position. So I want the turret to face where the enemy sprite is. Alright. And again, I'm going to say I want you to face exactly at it. And then I'll show you a different way in the next video. So I say in this direction, directly at it, as accurate as you can be. Okay, so that's run for the turret logic. So let's just see what effect that has. I might have to turn my rotation velocity off, although this would override it a little bit. Right, you can see it's sort of working. Let's just comment that line out. We don't need that rotation velocity in turret now. So let's just run it. And you should see that what happens is the bullets are shooting towards that sprite. And it'll track it. Oh, this is a good example because it's right close. Look, it stays tracking it like a security camera. Okay. So you can see that it's tracking that one. Now what we could do, just as a little exercise, we could put another turret on screen at a different position and see what that does. Okay, just to close out this video. So let's put a turret at 600, 400. I'm going to make this one shoot more often, so I'm just going to put every 1/10 of a second for that one. So this is the benefit of using parameters with sprites again, remember. So I've done all my logic for a turret, so I've just got to create more turrets. The logic's already there. So that one's shooting a lot faster. And they're tracking. Now one thing they're doing is they're directly pointing at it. Okay, which is great, but you watch when it goes off screen, they flick straight round to point directly at it again, which is a bit naff. Okay, so I'll show you another method for doing the rotation. So instead, so here's my find target code. Instead of this, where I do face position, I'm just going to comment that out, and I'm going to show you a different method. Oh, comment it out, Eric. Different method. So I'm going to say turret dot rotation angle. So what I'm going to do in this method, I'm going to say which way do I need to go in order to turn towards the thing I'm trying to track. So don't instantly do it, turn a little bit. So I'm going to say rotation angle plus equals 1f times, and I'll show you what the relevance of that is in a minute. Rotation alpha is involved again. Now it's going to be angular direction too. So this is the thing that if I give it the turret's position and my enemy's position, okay, and then minimum angle, that means when do I stop bothering to look, how close have I got to be in position. So I'm going to put that ridiculously low, 0.1f, and then I'm going to put false, okay, because I don't want to involve z. That's what that last one means. So this, when I run it this time, I'm going to have to stop this video soon. When I run it this time, what you get is the sprites are turning towards. So when it goes off screen this time, you watch this. They'll have to turn towards it. So that's a little bit more nice. Now the one that I put in, if I make that bigger, it'll turn quicker towards it. There's loads of ways of doing this, and there's loads of different ways of altering the speed and how clever they are. So they're turning really quicker, so they're right super locking on now. Okay, well I'll end this video here and I'll show us how to kill sprites and then how to track when there's multiple targets available. Okay.